Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia. Today, we've got Kyle Yates and Andrew Erickson, and of course, as always, it's you. And this is it, baby. This is it. Week 17, championship week. This is what you play for. The start-sit show, the most important start-sit show of our lifetime. Now, I said that last week and the week before, but this week, I really mean it. And the boys and I are going to help you with all the decisions you have, and obviously, some changes going on right now in the NFL because we have the COVID protocols now changing and evolving through the CDC. So the 10-day window is now the 5-day window, which means a lot of players we thought we might be without, well, we might be with in week 17. So there's so many things to break down, and we're going to jump right into it. But before we do, I wanted to start today's show to just acknowledging the passing of a football legend. Now, I know I've got a good 10 years on my co-hosts here. That's right, just about 10. Let's not make it more. But for these guys, Madden is a football game. For me, too. But John Madden was the voice of the NFL for my childhood and my adulthood for the most part. And furthermore, the generations before me, he was the coach of the vaunted Oakland Raiders, that team that was a bunch of degenerates and tough guys that were so competitive and such a great list of characters that the NFL is so rich about. And everybody loved John Madden, whether it was as a football player, as a football coach, as a broadcaster. You've heard so many incredible tributes to the legend of John Madden. And I think if not for John Madden, none of us are here. And you'd say, well, it's a fantasy show. Is that really true? And yes, it is. Because it's the passion and the fun of John Madden, whether it was silly things like the turkey legs or drawing on the screen or the incredible analysis that he would give you on top of the all Madden team as well. There was a fun aspect to football. He taught you the game. He taught you how to love the game through his own passion and personality. And John Madden, to me, is the voice of football always in my head. And I got to tell you guys, I was really bummed and really sad last night when the news came over the wire about the passing of John Madden. And I got to tell you, it's just such an icon in what we do in terms of football media, in terms of football passion. To lose a giant like that is very sad, but at the same time, Yates, we're celebrating a life spent in the sport we love that was spent so well and touched so many people.
I think that you can look back at Madden and the legacy, and you can look at the legacy of the NFL, and there are certain players and coaches and personalities that you can identify as titans that have changed the game, legends, whatever you want to, giants, whatever the word is that you want to be able to describe them, that, I can say that and you can immediately names come to the top of your mind, and Madden has to be at the top of the list. Now, he didn't have, like you mentioned, as profound of an impact on me outside of like a video game and stuff like that. Of course, you can see legendary clips, but for me, just outside of my age range and growing up, not really being so dedicated to the sport of football at that time, but then falling in love with it later. But you cannot talk about the legacy of the NFL without recognizing the impact that Madden had on it. So incredibly sad to hear of his passing. We appreciate everything that he did for the game and what that has meant for us here. But yes, you have to recognize that it's not the NFL as it is today without the legacy of John Madden.
No, I think you're exactly right, Yates. I think that's completely spot on. That the evolution of the game and the entertainment and the approachability of it. He was that first guy who was drawing on that telestrator, I feel like, and showing you the plays and kind of teaching you football. And when you're a kid and you don't know any better and you're just watching, you're just saying, that was really interesting. And then, of course, he would say, boom, and this guy comes over here, and then he would overdo it because he knew it was a fun thing to do. He was like everybody's fun uncle that was explaining the football game to you, but you had him every single Sunday, even if you're watching the game by yourself. And I think that was what's so incredibly impressive. And we all know the Madden legacy of the video games and everything else, but Andrew, for you, when you look back at this career and legacy of John Madden, this giant in our game, what were your thoughts, too, as you heard the news yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that resonated with me, obviously, is the video game. That's kind of how I built my connection with Madden, except for the fact that the one football game I remember Madden broadcasting, the first game I really even remember was the Patriots Super Bowl in 2001, where Madden, famously said that they should go for overtime, and instead they went for it with Tom Brady, and they ended up winning the game. But, hey, no one's 100% right, okay? It's okay. It's okay. We forgive you, Madden, because he was great in every other aspect, as a broadcaster. And, even though, he was a teacher of the game of football through his coaching, through his style, through how he interacted with people, not just on his team, but other people in coaching staff, in media. Like, everything you read about him on Twitter is just like, this guy was amazing. Like, he cared about everyone like they were his own flesh and blood. And, even though the video game is a game, it's like, that's how a lot of people learn about football. Like, through Madden. Like, I know what cover 3 is. I know cover 2. I know what, a QB spy is, because those are playing things you call in Madden. I always remember, like, hey, when in doubt, I would ask Madden what to do. Like, just press that button and be like, hey, man, what do I do? And he would keep telling me to punt on 4th down. I'm like, no, Madden, I want to go for it. So,
well, we should all take John Madden's advice for the most part, that's for sure. And also, it was so impactful, too. I saw Melissa Stark on this morning. I saw Andrea Kramer, and how important he was to many of these younger female broadcasters at the time, too. It was kind of an all-boys club, and he treated them with such respect, and he really kind of brought them along and helped them grow in their careers. And it's just such a wonderful story. The story of the Madden bus, right? Him going to all these different places, and, the Little Giants cameo. But you think about John Madden, that was him getting off the bus at a small town and eating with the people and hanging out. And he knew every place to go and every person to talk football with. And again, what a fantastic legacy he leaves. And on that note, we're going to continue to talk about legacy here too, because before we jump into everything, I also want to remind everybody, it's the spirit of giving this time of year, and if you haven't already and you want to, we've still got that GoFundMe page available for our good friend Tags and his family. So if you want to jump in there and do something good, again, you can find that link in so many places on all of our timelines. It's there. I know Fantasy Pros has promoted it many times as well. So please go check that out if you'd like to give something, or if you win your league this week and you'd like to make a donation on Tuesday. By all means, please do that. Certainly a lovely gesture there. And again, you can find that GoFundMe page for Mike Tagliere and his family over there. Also, I want to tell you, in the spirit of giving, we're also giving away that Alvin Kamara jersey, so check that out as well. FantasyPros.com/contest. All you got to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel at Fantasy Pros, screenshot that, and then send that over to FantasyPros.com/contest. Thanks to our friends at PristineAuction.com. They're giving that away. We've only got a few days left, though. Literally, like New Year's Eve night, that's it. So if you haven't already, get in that, and hopefully you can win as well. So, gentlemen, let's kick things off with the running back position. And Yates, let's start with you. Let's start week 17. Who is the running back in the top 20 you're fading that scares the heck out of you, that you do not want to leave your fantasy hopes and dreams and championships to?
Well, it's interesting because you look at the rest of the running backs outside of the top 20, and it gets a little sketchy after that point. So as I highlight Melvin Gordon here, I'm going to say, like, this is not a complete fade him at all costs, like, do not play him whatsoever, but we do have to at least be concerned with Gordon. I mean, you look at his recent history here. He has topped 10 half PPR fantasy points once in the past 5 games. That was up against Detroit, where he had the multiple touchdown game. He's coming off of a 7 for -4 rushing yardage game. And Drew Lock is the starting quarterback here this week for the Denver Broncos. Now, we look at the matchup here, and I think that that's why he's ranked at 19 in ECR last time I checked. So I think that's why, going up against the Chargers, who are allowing 119.2 rushing yards per game, but will the offense move the ball? That's the question. With Drew Lock, will they be able to move the ball whatsoever? So with them being in this split here with Javonte Williams, this is just a situation where I don't see the path for upside here with Melvin Gordon. For him to be a top 20 play, I'm going to have him as a low-end RB2, high-end RB3 in my rankings this week. Someone that you can play if you need to, but someone that I don't see the path for incredible upside here.
Well, it's pretty amazing because he's my guy too. So you and I are in agreement. Melvin Gordon was the first guy that came onto my list, and I see the temptation against the Chargers, who all season we've been targeting them. Get your running backs in against the Chargers. To me, Melvin Gordon just looks done. And I've seen December Melvin Gordon enough in my lifetime to know that this is what happens, and this is why you have to put him in a committee at this stage in his career too, is because he tends to fade, or there's injuries, or there's things that pile up with Melvin Gordon historically if you go back and look at the game log, and I feel like we're here all over again. It's deja vu for me, and I think that temptation with the Charger matchup is a lot, Yates, and I'm concerned about it, and I would not go to that well. I would be looking for a lot of other options if I could. I know he's number 19 in the ECR in the consensus, but you know what? He might as well be 28 for me, because I am just not feeling Melvin Gordon this week in this matchup, and I would be looking for other options. How about you, Andrew Erickson? Who in the top 20 at running back are you fading this week in championship week?
Well, I'm cheating a little bit because this running back is already outside the top 20, because I think that the experts are right here. I don't think he should be a top 20 running back, and it's Saquon Barkley. I just think it's a player that a lot of people have on their roster, and they're kind of like, what do I do with this guy? And I'm giving you permission to be like, just find someone else. Like, there are other alternatives. You can go different direction than Saquon Barkley. Again, why are you playing him? Because he's a running back with a pulse? Like, that's pretty much it. Like, if that's the only argument, then there are ways to get off of him, especially if things happen with COVID with other backup running backs. Like, any backup running back that's, like, inserted into a starting role, like, I want to play over Saquon Barkley. Again, touches per game over the last 4, he has at 18, but Devontae Booker is at 10.5. Like, Booker is continuously getting in work, especially when it comes to receptions. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, we're seeing Barkley's routes and targets decline the last couple weeks. He and Devontae Booker both have 14 catches in the last 4 games. So, you're praying that Barkley gets there on garbage time, receptions, because the offense is not going to be efficient with Jake Fromm / Mike Glennon or whoever they decide to put there at quarterback. So you're just praying that he catches a bunch of dump-off passes or scores a touchdown, and that's not a recipe for success. I get that the matchup against the Bears isn't bad, but I guess it doesn't really matter to me. And with one game, over 11 fantasy points in his last 6 games played, I'm just like, I think that he's a strong guy that you should probably try to fade as best you can.
All right, let's move on to the guys who are on the fringe, the RB3/flex plays, and let's find 2 guys that we want to start. Yates, who are 2 guys in this grouping outside of the top 24 that you feel are worthy of cracking your lineup this week.
One guy that I want to highlight, and it'll be interesting for me where exactly he lands in my rankings in respect to Saquon Barkley, right? Is like, do I play Michael Carter over Saquon Barkley this week? And Carter, you look at the matchup here, the New York Jets going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you go, okay, no, like we should be looking away from Carter. But I want to pump the brakes on that, right? Because you say, what's the path for success here for New York in this matchup? You have Jamison Crowder and Elijah Moore are both 50-50 for this game. Sounds like they're going to be more listed as doubtful leading up to this game. And Zach Wilson is not going to be able to pick apart Tampa Bay's secondary, right? It's Zach Wilson and with Keelan Cole and Braxton Berrios, right? So the path for success is for them to lean on Carter out of the backfield here, and not necessarily as a runner, because Tampa Bay continues to just shut down opposing running backs on the ground. But actually, Tampa Bay is allowing 6.8 receptions per game to opposing running backs, and teams are targeting their running backs against them at the second highest clip in the NFL. So with Carter's skill set as a receiver out of the backfield, this is a situation where he might not get a ton done on the ground. He might still, see some work here split some work with Tevin Coleman. But as far as leaning on him out of the backfield as a receiver, that's going to be the recipe for success, and success in quotations here for New York. So I think Carter is going to be a safe and viable RB2 in full PPR formats especially. And then going a little bit further down the list here, I'm going all the way down to like RB43. It's the same game on the other side of the ball. Keyshawn Vaughn. I think with Keyshawn Vaughn, it's the Jets. That's the argument here for looking at Keyshawn Vaughn at least as a flex play, right? Ronald Jones isn't going to get every carry in this game. We could see this turn into a blowout. So we could see, Ronald Jones move to the bench after he scores a couple touchdowns, whatever. I love Ronald Jones this week, but Keyshawn Vaughn, he broke away that big play last week, and it's up against the Jets, so the scoring opportunities are there. So I think that as a flex option, if you are in a pinch, I'm not saying that you have to start him above Saquon Barkley. Don't go that far with Keyshawn Vaughn, but I do think that you can look his way if you are in a pinch.
All right, Andrew Erickson, let's head over to you for 2 guys in this RB3 category that we feel good about starting in Week 17.
Yeah, so my first guy is Jordan Howard. Again, this is assuming that he's going to recover from his stinger, which the initial reports are that he should be able to suit up and he should play this week. And really, it's because I think Howard's been the best Eagles rusher on the ground since he kind of entered the fold, in Week 8. Since Week 8, he's PFF's 5th highest graded rusher, top 10 in yards per carry, yards after contact per attempt. And this is Jordan Howard we're talking about. The guy that we were just totally wrote off. We thought that he was dust, and apparently he's not. He's been rushing really effectively this year, and he has kind of been second in command. When Miles Sanders has missed time, he was first in command when Miles Sanders was out for a period of time over the last couple weeks. So I think he's kind of the guy that I would still rank ahead of Boston Scott if we both get both of those guys healthy. And it's a matchup that, look, the football team defense is just terrible right now. They can't stop anything through the air, on the ground. And yes, they have been better against running backs on the ground when you look at the year as a whole, but we've already seen this matchup play out, and the Eagles run over everybody. It doesn't matter what defense they're playing. They rushed for 238 yards the last time they played the football team with Miles Sanders and with Boston Scott with Jordan Howard. So I think that Howard is a really solid bet to rush for 60, 70 plus yards in this game, score a touchdown. So I like him a lot. And then obviously if he's inactive or he doesn't go, Boston Scott kind of slides into that role of that Eagles running back that I want. Kenneth Gainwell really hasn't taken on a big role as a rusher. He's really used more as a receiver, and I don't think this game really profiles as one where, oh, the Eagles are trailing, they need to catch up and throw the football. I think that the Eagles want to throw the football the least amount as possible and just run it with these two guys.
All right, fair enough. Do you have anybody else in this grouping you want to talk about as far as starting?
Yeah, I think that Dare Ogunbowale is the guy that you want to get off the waiver wire if you need someone to just plug in automatically. Now, it's not like I would start him over Barkley because it's the same argument. You're looking for a guy that you think can get some volume, that can just kind of plug an RB3 slot for you. And, Raquel Armstead is going to be active for this game, so I don't expect Ogunbowale to basically see a 90% plus snap share and basically see all the carries and touches for the Jaguars. But the most important thing is I think that he's going to see the receiving work, because that's really all that really matters. You don't care if Armstead is taking carries on early downs when the Jaguars are down by 20 points to the Patriots. That doesn't help you. That's not value touches. You want him catching passes out of the backfield, which is what he's done historically. He did it with Tampa Bay 2 years ago. He did it last year when he got the spot start in Week 17 after Robinson got hurt. He had 7 targets in that game. He had 18 touches for 72 yards. So he's been a bell cow in certain points throughout his career, in basically Week 17 in for James Robinson. So I don't think it's that shocking, or that you're not going out on a limb saying, okay, I think that Ogunbowale is going to be the guy, and that's what I'm going to roll with here. So I think that he makes sense as a top 30 running back this week.
All right, Yates, let's talk about the flip side, the guys we want to sit this week in Week 17 at running back that we do not feel good about.
Well, I'm going to talk about someone that we haven't talked about yet on this podcast, and that's Dare Ogunbowale. Dare here is someone that I actually have quite a bit of concern starting this week, and it's really just because we know who he is at this point of his career, and he's really a special teams guy, someone that can step in and handle the receiving work. I get that argument, but I just think that the Patriots are going to completely shut down this Jacksonville offense, and that I have a lot of concerns here about taking Ogunbowale based on what he did last week, right? People are going to look at the production, what he had last week, and say oh, okay, I can kind of expect that moving into this week, and that's just, I don't feel comfortable with that. So Ogunbowale, yeah, as a top 30, mid-range RB3, sure, but as someone who I think a lot of people are going to go out onto the waiver wire and pick up and say okay, I can plug him in, and at least he's going to bring me a safe floor. I just don't know if that's even the case. The other guy for me is Rex Burkhead. Burkhead coming off of a monstrous performance here up against the Los Angeles Chargers, but you look at the 49ers are allowing just 78.5 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs versus the Chargers and 119.2 per game. So much tougher matchup here for Rex Burkhead. Again, kind of just cautioning and saying with these waiver wire pickups, a lot of guys are going to look at Ogunbowale and Rex Burkhead and say, okay, I can kind of expect that if I'm in a pinch where I can plug these guys in, and I just want to say, let's just exercise some caution with both these guys.
All right, there you go. So those are two guys Yates is not happy about. One of them was one of your guys, Andrew. So it's your turn. If you want to fire back, I don't know. Anybody you want to sit there at running back? Yeah,
I'm going to sit Kyle's boy, Michael Carter. That's who I'm going to sit. I'm going to fire back. Shots fired. And, I understand, Kyle Yates' argument for Carter. The Buccaneers give a ton of receptions to Tampa Bay, to running backs. That's how you beat them. You beat them through the air with the running backs. But the issue is, Michael Carter doesn't get targeted from Zach Wilson. That's the issue. He hasn't been seeing any targets. We saw those spiked weeks with Mike White, and I think that we're holding on to hope that that's going to happen again because it was so awesome for Michael Carter's fantasy value. But he hasn't seen more than 3 targets in any game that Zach Wilson has played in. And does that change in the Buccaneers in that Buccaneers matchup? Potentially, yeah. Does it move up to 4 or 5? Yes, but oftentimes offense dictates the way the defense plays. Zach Wilson isn't just going to see the Bucs and be oh, now I have to immediately throw the ball to the running back more. It's he's looking downfield because that's the type of quarterback he is. So I'm not so sure that the matchup is just going to necessarily change that. So that's my concern about Michael Carter, that he doesn't necessarily get as much as a bump as a receiver as we hope, even though the matchup does kind of predicate that could potentially happen. So that's my concern for Michael Carter. And then the other running back that I have concerned about, again, he's actually ranked higher than the 30. I think he's RB 25 in ECR. It's Deontay Foreman. He's someone that I talked about last week as sit. And if he didn't score that touchdown, he would have done literally nothing.
You've turned on your guy these last 2 weeks. I hope someday you don't turn on me. Next thing I know, I'm hosting another show, and here comes Andrew Erickson with a steel chair behind me, knocks me out, and challenges me to a steel cage match. This is your guy. Why are you losing faith in Foreman now?
I'm not losing faith in him. I just noticed that 2 weeks ago he had really good matchups, and now he doesn't. Like with these fringy running backs, you can't just be like, oh, we're just gonna keep riding this guy because he's been good for me. It's like, no, you need to look. It's a new week. Like when they're not locked and loaded studs where you feel really good about their volume every single week, you just leave them in your lineup. Foreman's not like that. I mean, he played 34% of the snaps and had 9 touches last week. How is that a locked-in, secure workload worthy of a top 24 running back? McNichols played 4 snaps. He had 7 touches. Hilliard had less snaps, but he also had 7 touches. I don't see how you can trust literally any of these Tennessee Titans running backs. You look at Miami's defense, second fewest fantasy points per game allowed to running backs over the last 4 weeks, third fewest points per game on the season to the running back position. Again, it was a tough matchup last week. Like, this isn't the Jacksonville Jaguars or Pittsburgh Steelers defense that Foreman has been playing the last couple weeks. It's much tougher, and with such a split, like, I can't trust him as a top 30 running back, especially because he doesn't have any chops in the passing game. You hope he scores a touchdown. Even with the touchdown last week, he was still outside the top 35 running back. So Foreman, I am out on this week.
All right, very well. So since you guys are split on those two guys, I'll have to break the tie, I guess. So don't start either of them. Don't start Ogunbowale. Don't start Michael Carter if you can avoid it. I would pivot to wide receivers this week, and the reason why in that flex position is because defense is starting to pack up the tents and go home. That's what's happening right now. It happens in week 17 every year, and now it's going to happen in week 18 as well. There's a lot of haves and have-nots, and if you've seen even last week, right, there's some defenses right now that once the game gets out of hand, everyone just kind of throws their hands up. People don't want to take a lot of contact. It's going to be a great weekend for throwing the football, so lean towards the wide receivers at the flex position. But that being said, let's play our favorite game. Who should I start? Thanks to our Who Should I Start tool over at fantasypros.com/start. It is free, so you can go ahead and get some free advice there, just like the podcast is free. All these things we give away for free, jerseys, all kinds of things. Let's start with this one. Your favorite guy, Saquon Barkley, Andrew Erickson, or Devin Singletary? Yeah, that's right. I did it. Who would you rather start, Devin Singletary or Saquon Barkley with all the chips on the line?
I'm going with Devin Singletary. He has 50 touches over the last 3 weeks, and the other Bills running backs have 8. So I'm going to take the guy that's seen 86% of his running back field touches against the Atlanta Falcons.
3 straight weeks of half PPR double-digit points for Devin Singletary. Is that enough to unseat Saquon Barkley for you as well, Yates?
What a world we live in. Yes, I will start Devin Singletary over Saquon Barkley this week. You're looking at the matchup there with Singletary against Atlanta.
Yeah, that's it. Make it 3 for 3. Full sweep right there. 64%, though, of the experts still say Saquon Barkley, which I just believe to be wrong at this point. Like, we're living in the past. We have to live in the now. I know sometimes as fantasy football analysts, we're a little bit of prisoner of the moment. No more. I'm done. No more Giants offense for me. How about another one? 2 guys who are more all-purpose backs, one coming off an injury, one coming off a very good game. Kareem Hunt or Derrick Gore. Yates, who would you rather start this week?
So I don't even know if Kareem Hunt is going to play this week. I think he's off the COVID list, but I still think that he's dealing with the ankle injury last I checked. So if Kareem Hunt does play, then this is pretty easy for me. This will be Kareem Hunt. Obviously, we have CEH listed as week to week, not expected to play, but Darrell Williams is going to step into the main role there. Derrick Gore, you're really kind of playing in the same vein of like Craig Reynolds, right? With if Jamal Williams is the lead back, it's like he's the secondary option in that backfield. So it's like why you're only playing him because you're in an absolute pinch. So I will play Kareem Hunt, assuming that he plays.
All right, how about you, Andrew? Same thing. If Hunt is on the field, you're playing Hunt over Derrick Gore?
Yeah, I want to play any running back that is playing the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Wow, that is so weird to say, but yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh's been terrible against running backs here on the ground. So yeah, I'm going to play Kareem Hunt.
Times have changed. 3 for 3. If Hunt's on the field, he's in my lineup over Gore as well. Let's switch gears to the wide receiver position. And Yates, why don't you take this one first? Who is a guy that you are concerned with in the top 30 at wide receiver and maybe even considering benching in the championship week?
This is tough because Van Jefferson was really starting to get on a roll. Coming out of their bye week, he had 3 top 24 fantasy finishes. And so we kind of bumped him up rest of season rankings. We thought that we had just a locked and loaded, top 24 wide receiver, someone who brought plenty of upside every single week. And that's really just not the case anymore. Since that point, he's had 3 receptions for just 27 yards over the past 2 weeks. I think here's the thing, going up against Baltimore, he could reel in one big play deep downfield, and he could prove me wrong in this situation. But that is more of a flex option rather than a top 30 wide receiver. So as I looked at the top 30 in ECR, I was able to highlight one, Marquise Brown. Like, Marquise Brown should still not be a top 30 wide receiver. I've been saying that over the past several weeks. But then also going to Van Jefferson and singling him out, saying he's more one of the guys, like, you have to bump down your rankings and bump down your lineup just a little bit to say more of a boomer bust option now at this point, rather than someone who we thought was a locked and loaded top 24 play just a few weeks ago.
All right. Despite this matchup too, right? I mean, it is Baltimore. I mean, they've given up so many air yards. You still don't think Van Jefferson, if you had the choice, is a guy you want to put in there?
Again, like, I think you can still play Van Jefferson, but I'm saying, like, as a top 30 guy, that just doesn't fit the profile of someone where we look at what he is able to do and what he's been doing over the past couple weeks and say, like, that's someone that we want to play as a top 30 option. I think he's more of a flex play rather than someone who's a locked-in option into your starting lineup.
All right, I thought I queued up Andrew for the first one here. So, Andrew, I'm going to give you a second shot to be first. Yates was just so excited to take Van Jefferson out. I just, that's okay. So, Andrew, now's your chance. Go.
All right, so Michael Pittman. I don't like I don't like receivers catching passes from Sam Ehlinger. That's just me. Just one of the things. It's a concern.
Why wouldn't you like that? That makes no sense at all.
I mean, if you've been playing like Terry McLaurin at all this year, like that's basically what you're going to be looking at. It just these backup quarterbacks that come in. Sometimes we see the receivers are okay, and I know that Pittman is really like the only offensive pass catcher that's been anything of relevance in fantasy this year. Again, he has a massive target share over the last 4 weeks. 39%, which is the most in the NFL. Like, so I was like excited about Pittman, even a tough matchup against the Raiders, but then, the potential losing Carson Wentz, I think, is a big deal. Ehlinger, he was really more of a mobile quarterback at Texas. That's really what he did a lot of, and I think that the Colts are going to, buy into his dynamism on the ground and use that to get more holes up and up for Jonathan Taylor. I mean, you look at the matchup against the Raiders, they've allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs and the 3rd fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. So when I look at that, I mean, the Colts are devising a game plan. We're like, all right, well, let's give Jonathan Taylor the ball like 35 times because we know the Raiders can't stop it, and we're not going to throw the ball like at all. So like that's my concern. It's not even because Pittman can't beat his guy. It's just like I don't see a plan where the Colts are like, all right, we got to throw. Like, I just don't envision that happening, and unfortunately that's going to hurt Pittman's productivity. So I originally had him as like a top 20 receiver before like the news broke, and I moved him down he's outside my top 30, so I just like don't feel great about him this week.
So if Wentz should clear the new protocols in place, which, again, tenuous, but still possible at the time of us recording this on Wednesday, does that change your tune about Pittman at all?
Yeah, I think that you would have to, move him up. I mean, you're going to get, a better passing attack, I think. And even so, like, the Colts will still probably deploy a run-heavy approach, but that doesn't always, like, stop Pittman. They've been run-heavy all season long. So, Pittman would definitely be in my top 24 if Wentz came back.
All right, for me, second week in a row goes to, guess who? Terry McLaurin. I hope you listened last week. If not, and you still made it, I hope you listen this week. Look, the Eagles secondary is not so bad, but Terry McLaurin's play has just been, it's non-existent. He's done nothing since week 11. He hasn't finished as a wide receiver 3 in 7 of the last 8 weeks. Not even as a wide receiver 3. And I think that's the thing. It's like, well, if he's not performing like a 1A, okay, at least he's still giving you productivity. He's not giving you anything. And at this point, especially with all the chips on the line, I just can't trust him, which is sad because Terry McLaurin has been one of our favorite guys his last few years in fantasy. But once again, Saquon Barkley, Terry McLaurin, big names, they're not the guys who are going to win us championships this week. I'm sorry. I just don't see that being the case of where we're at in the current state. So we have to kind of be honest with ourselves of where things are at. And Terry McLaurin, once again, for me, is a sit this week. Now, let's find some guys who can start. Andrew Erickson, and only Andrew Erickson. Give me 2 guys you want to start this week at the wide receiver position outside of that wide receiver 3 group.
Yeah, so the first guy is KJ Osborn. So we got the news that Adam Thielen is going to miss the rest of the season, and we've gotten kind of a sample size of Osborn over the last month, 4 weeks, of him basically kind of playing a full-time role. Now, Thielen has played in 2 of those games for like partially, and then Osborn has played 2 full games without Adam Thielen, but you just kind of look at the whole sample size, he's been really productive. 13.7 fantasy points per game, which ranks as wide receiver 26. He's run a route on 89% of Kirk Cousins' dropbacks, and he's seen a 20% target share. So, again, doing all those things in an offense that's basically being dominated by Justin Jefferson is still really impressive. Like, the fact that Osborn is still able to do enough and be efficient on his targets as a downfield threat. He saw 100 air yards last week. So I think KJ Osborn is a solid plug-and-play guy against the Packers on Sunday night.
I would agree with that one. Okay, give me another one besides KJ Osborn that you feel good about starting.
Josh Palmer. So he is the other guy now. It's, again, it comes with the caveat of these new COVID rules. If Mike Williams comes back, then, again, obviously you can't trust Josh Palmer nearly as much because he won't be starting. That's the thing. But when he's had his 2 starts this season, whether it's been because Mike Williams missed a game or Keenan Allen missed a game, Josh Palmer has been, kind of like KJ Osborn, been really efficient. Averaged 6.5 targets, 54 receiving yards, 14 fantasy points per game. So Josh Palmer, I think that he's someone that you want to make sure you have. He's not available on the waiver wire. Make sure that you pick him up at least to kind of see how things play out. And if we get the news that, okay, Mike Williams is not going to return, then I feel like you can confidently plug in Josh Palmer into your lineups.
With how good the cornerback play has been in Denver this year, if Mike Williams does play and then Palmer's on like the third guy or something like that, is that actually beneficial if Mike Williams plays for Palmer? I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here and asking the question.
Well, it also, so Jalen Guyton is another player that is also kind of like involved, and he was in the COVID list as well. So him being back too kind of throws another wrench in it where it's like, I have too much, there's too much unknown about Palmer's role. Like, is he going to be running behind Guyton? Like, because he's kind of filled different roles. Like when Keenan Allen didn't play, like he filled like Keenan Allen's role, but then he played more of the Mike Williams role when Keenan Allen was the one that was active. So he's been a mobile chess piece for them, which I think is just great for his like long-term outlook that he's able to play all of these roles and be successful. But if all those 3 other receivers are back, I'd definitely be more hesitant to put him in because I just don't know, or I don't feel great about his role. And again, like the matchup is also pretty tough against Denver.
All right, Yates, who are your mobile chess pieces at wide receiver that you want to play this week?
For me, I'm going to go back to Gabriel Davis. So we got news earlier today saying that he has been activated off of the COVID list, along with Cole Beasley. But I think Gabriel Davis has done enough to show that he is worthy of, being given a larger role in this offense, and they get to take on Atlanta. So Gabriel Davis, I think with the touchdown upside, he's someone that if you have been holding on to him in an IR spot or on your bench, he's someone that as a flex option, I would love to plug into my lineup this week. And then the other guy is Josh Palmer. I think that Palmer, despite the tough matchup here, and again, it comes with the caveat, like Andrew said, comes with the caveat of Mike Williams and Jalen Guyton being out. But I think there's more than enough volume here for Palmer, despite the tougher matchup, right? Because I think you'll have Bryce Callahan matching up on Keenan Allen, and that leaves like Patrick Surtain or Ronald Darby, Kyle Fuller, whatever, to line up on Josh Palmer. But I think the opportunity and volume is there enough to be a flex option. So Palmer has impressed me this year. I think that he has a very bright future, and I think he's someone that you can look at as a lower end flex option this week. All
right, Yates, if those are guys you want to start, who are the guys at wide receiver you want to sit this week?
Well, it's funny because I'm on this show every other week, and so when I go through and update my spreadsheet where I have all the names listed and stuff like that from the previous time I was on, I had AJ Green still in the outside the top 30, concern and stuff like that. I was like, oh, perfect. I can just leave him right there because he's still at wide receiver 38 in ECR, and AJ Green at this point, I think he's just kind of done. I think he's just kind of mailing it in. He doesn't seem to be like super interested to be out there. So, and we're seeing Antoine Wesley become more involved than AJ Green in the offense at this point. So AJ Green, someone that I am looking to get out of my starting lineups. Going down a little bit further is Kadarius Toney. You mentioned it with Saquon Barkley. It's like no more Giants for me. Like I'm not playing this game with the Giants wide receivers with Jake Fromm, Mike Glennon both expected to start this week, and play, or not start, but both expected to play this week.
It wouldn't matter if they both. It wouldn't.
I mean, run 2 QB sets. I don't care. It's not gonna work. Yeah, Kadarius Toney. He might see volume, but I just don't expect it to translate to anything. I don't want to play this game with in my championship week with Kadarius Toney in my starting lineup for the first time in 4 or 5 weeks. I just don't want to play that game.
I agree with you. All right, let's move on to the guys that you want to sit, Andrew, wide receiver this week.
Yes, echo the sentiment from Yates about AJ Green. Just you got to stay away. You just cannot play this guy. 13% target share over the last 2 games without DeAndre Hopkins. he's probably going to see a fair share of Trevon Diggs, who has just been blanking guys left and right ever since he gave up a bunch of yardage in the beginning of the season. He's just improved his game to the next level. I mean, this whole Dallas this Cardinals
in general has been really,
this
really
Cardinals
good lately.
offense is going to be like facing an uphill battle against Dallas. I mean, this is like the best defense in the NFL right now. So I don't really want any part of this Cardinals passing attack, or at least some of these ancillary pieces, probably outside of Christian Kirk. So again, Dallas has held opposing perimeter wide receivers to the league's second lowest passer rating when targeted, and that's where AJ Green runs all his routes, on the outside. So he's screwed basically. So gonna stay away from AJ Green. The other guy I want to talk about is Marvin Jones. So he had a boom game last week. As much as a boom game you can get from a Jaguars wide receiver, but again, against the New England Patriots, who's been a team that's been locking down receivers left and right, allowing the fourth fewest receiving yards, fewest receptions per game to opposing wide receivers. And you look at all of Jones' games where he's had actual production, Jets, 49ers, Titans, just like bad secondaries, like bad defenses. Like the Patriots are not that. J.C. Jackson's been one of the better corners in the NFL this season. He's allowed the league's second lowest passer rating when targeted, 47.5. So I expect those guys to match up a lot as an individual wide receiver cornerback matchup. And when you look at the routes in terms of receiving yards over the last 2 weeks since Urban Meyer's was axed, Laquan Treadwell is actually the guy that's running the most routes on the Jags. Like he's playing more than Marvin Jones is. So he's actually been the one that's been more consistent. He's over 54 receiving yards in 5 straight games. Now, this is not me touting Treadwell as this amazing play, but the fact that someone else is just doing more than Jones is more consistently just makes me want to get as far away from Jones as possible.
There you have it. Great play. Laquan Treadwell, straight from Andrew Erickson's mouth.
It is so funny, Treadwell's game log over the past 5 weeks. 4 for 53, 4 for 62, 4 for 68, 6 for 57, 4 for 54. Like, he can't finish with less than 50 receiving yards or more than 70. Like, it's just right in that range.
It's the limitations of the offense. It's the limitations of the game plan.
I think there's value to that.
The offensive line, I mean, all the issues that the Jaguars have in terms of trying to move the football. I mean, they're limited. That's what's going on there right now. But it's nice to see you guys come back together at wide receiver, agreeing on starting Palmer and agreeing on sitting AJ Green after, running back got a little tense there for a little while with you two guys. So I'm glad we're back on track. Let's play another game of Who Should I Start with another guy. And we'll start with Van Jefferson, who Yates is already concerned with. Let's test Yates for a second here. Van Jefferson or Russell Gage? Yates, who should I start?
It kind of depends on what I need. Russell Gage, tough matchup up against Buffalo, obviously, and Van Jefferson has a great matchup, but I think Gage could bring a safer floor. Van Jefferson could bring more upside, so it just depends on what I need. Probably in championship week, I will go for the swing for the fences play. I'll probably go Jefferson there.
All right, how about you, Andrew Erickson, Van Jefferson or Russell Gage?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Van Jefferson here. He saw over 100 air yards last week. I mean, Matthew Stafford was so bad last week. He was just like all over the place throwing the ball. And I think Jefferson could have had a much better game if Stafford just hit him more accurately on some of his passes. So, again, I think only one of his 6 targets was actually deemed catchable last week. So he never really had a chance to do much of anything. So I will go back to Jefferson against, this Ravens secondary that, has basically I could be out there. Like, they don't even know.
If anyone can get right against the team, it's certainly Stafford against the Ravens secondary. I'm just going to put that out there. So give me Van Jefferson, too. 3 for 3 on that one. Let's go to another one here. We've been tough on Jerry Jeudy lately, and obviously Andrew Luck under center doesn't make things easier. So Jerry Jeudy or Joshua Palmer, one of your favorites here, guys. So I'm going to test you yet again on the opposite end. Andrew Erickson, Jerry Jeudy or Joshua Palmer?
Did you just say Andrew Luck under center?
Well,
no.
He said Andrew. He said like Andrew Luck, but it sounded like.
But it sounded like Andrew Luck.
Not Andrew Luck.
I wish he was under center.
Drew Luck.
I've got a cold, so I don't know if like my ears are clogged. So I was like,
anything that has to do with Andrews
Andrew
or
Luck?
Erickson,
Right.
Yates he's not.
Got
feeling
it.
today.
All right, go
He's
ahead.
just not-
So, again, I think that Josh Palmer is still the guy I would prefer to play if there's no Mike Williams. Again, I'm just looking at the quarterback. Who's throwing the football? Justin Herbert or Drew Lock? I think that's enough of a reason for me to back Josh Palmer. The only thing that I like about Jeudy potentially is that Chris Harris is on the COVID list and he might not play, and he's their starting slot corner for the Chargers. So that could give some semblance of, we could see a boost in production from Jerry Jeudy. But, I mean, the Broncos, the way that their targets are distributed, it's so flat across the board that no one can do anything. The most that any one of these receivers gets, including the tight ends, including the running backs, last week was 5 targets. Like that was the most that any of them had. It was Jeudy and Sutton both had 5 targets. So even with a plus matchup where we could see Jeudy being more efficient against a poor cornerback, it doesn't even necessarily matter because they're not trying to throw the football with Drew Lock. I mean, they were trying to do whatever they could to get away from him dropping back at the throw and trying to run the football, and they should be able to run the football against the Chargers' bad run defense. So I'm going to lean towards Josh Palmer. If Mike Williams plays, then I will begrudgingly play Jerry Jeudy.
All right, Yates, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I'll go Josh Palmer if Mike Williams is out here as well. Just looking at the target volume, and I just really don't want to take any chances with this Denver wide receiver core. So, but I will pivot, like Andrew said. If Williams is back, then I will play Jerry Jeudy over Josh Palmer.
All right, the experts had Jerry Jeudy at 68% over Joshua Palmer 32%. They also had Van Jefferson 68%, believe it or not, over Russell Gage at 32%. So eerily similar, spot on there. Ooh, I just got the chills. Let's go to the quarterback position now, and let's talk about who we don't want to play a quarterback, who is a QB1, or at least theoretically. And this is going to disappoint a lot of people, but for me, it's Lamar Jackson. Even if he does play, even if he is deemed healthy enough to go, I'm just super concerned about re-injury. Whenever you have a guy, especially with an ankle injury, going out there not 100%, more of a mobile quarterback in the first place anyway, and now you're going to throw him out there and have him run around and get chased by Aaron Donald. That does not seem like a good situation. And that risk of re-injury, to me, makes me want to put other guys around that same QB 12 area around him, above him. And I think that's what I'm looking at, whether it be the Kirk Cousins, whether it be Trey Lance, whether it be any of those kind of guys, Joe Burrow. I definitely want to start all of those guys for me personally over Lamar this week because I just don't have the confidence of the health. And the last thing I need is him coming out of that game and giving me nothing for a half, a quarter, or several quarters of football. And that to me is scary enough. So, guys, I'm going to go to you, Andrew Erickson. Andrew Erickson, not Andrew Luck, not Kyle Yates, Andrew Erickson. Who do you want to start, who do you want to fade, at the quarterback position this week?
Yeah, I agree with you on Lamar. I have him outside my top 12 quarterbacks, so he'd definitely be someone I would also recommend to try to get away from. He wasn't even being really productive before his injury, so I think that you're playing with fire if you're going to start Lamar, especially in a tougher matchup against the Los Angeles Rams. For me, I just Justin Herbert, he's ranked really high in ECR, but the Denver Broncos defense is like legit good. They've been limiting every quarterback that they've played, whether it be Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, all these guys. You look at what they do against Denver, and then the subsequent week, they go off because the Denver defense has just been really, really good this year. I mean, before Burrow had this massive game, he scored 12.7 fantasy points against the Broncos. The way that they play stylistically just kind of suppresses quarterback production. And now I know Herbert did get it done against them, 21.7 fantasy points against them the first time they played. So that's why I think that he still is worthy of, being in your starting lineup. I know someone asked me Herbert versus, Trey Lance, for example, as a start-sit question, but I think I'd still go Herbert in that case just because he did show it, as the best quarterback. But, potentially Mike Williams, we saw them run into some issues last week, without Mike Williams against a defense we thought that was pretty easy to beat. And, Herbert was more so than an elite fantasy asset.
If Denver gets a quarterback next year of any reputable talent or reliability, they're an 11-win team, I think. I really do. I mean, you look at the weapons they have. They have a tight end. They have a great young running back. They have 3 viable wide receivers. Offensive line is pretty good, especially for the run. And they have a good defense, as you mentioned. You just got to get some competent quarterback play and some consistent quarterback play. And they turn around big time. Yates, quarterback, top 12 guys. Who are you benching this week?
I'm going to agree with you with Lamar Jackson. I'm going to have a very tough time if I have Lamar plugging him right back into my starting lineup with confidence after missing several weeks, dealing with this ankle injury, and then also the matchup up against the Rams. There's a lot going against Lamar here for me to feel confident playing him in championship week. So you mentioned some of the other names. 100% I'm playing Trey Lance against Houston over Lamar Jackson against the Rams. So that's a situation for me. I'm fading Lamar Jackson. I'll probably look elsewhere if I can.
All right, let's keep talking about Trey Lance, and let's play a game of who should I start with Trey Lance? Trey Lance against the Houston Texans, or Kirk Cousins against the Green Bay Packers. Yates, who would you rather start, Lance or Cousins?
I'm going to go with Lance here. With his rushing ability, the matchup up against Houston, you look at Kirk Cousins up against Green Bay, they're expected to get Jair Alexander back this week potentially, so that's something to be concerned about too. I think there's a lot going up against Cousins, losing Adam Thielen too, like a lot going up against it. And Trey Lance, all he has to do is, he's going to get 10 plus rushing attempts easy, and that's with his talent and ability plus the matchup. Yes, I think he has top 5 upside this week.
How about you, Andrew? In consensus, these guys are back-to-back right now, and they're flip-flopping constantly at 13 and 14 overall. Would you rather start Trey Lance or Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, I agree with Yates. I'm going to start Trey Lance. I was closer between these two players earlier in the week, and I did some more thinking. And you know what? Kirk Cousins playing on Sunday Night Football at Lambeau in December, or January it will be. I'm just like, no, I'm out. Like that just does not seem like a recipe.
Isn't that the exact time where Kirk Cousins puts up 25 and we all look at each other and
no,
go,
it's definitely the game where he puts up 8 points, throws like a couple picks, and you're like, I should have just played.
Of Monday night Kirk Cousins. Sunday night Kirk Cousins is good. Monday night Kirk Cousins is bad.
I think that the Adam Thielen thing is massive, because Thielen just catches so many touchdowns. Like, that's part of his game. Dalvin Cook is coming back. Maybe they established the run a little bit more. So, yeah, I think that I would still go with Trey Lance. He's playing Houston. It's a layup matchup. He's a mobile quarterback. We see this all the time. Yeah. Does it not work every single time we play a mobile quarterback? Yes. But more often than not, if you trust, Tyler Huntley, Josh Johnson was legit last week as a quarterback streamer because he's rushing. So I think that Trey Lance is the play here.
All right, 52% to 48% for Trey Lance, according to the experts right now. So we'll see and follow that as it goes. But you are in agreement with the consensus, at least for now. In terms of the rest of the guys around the fringe of QB1, anybody else, Andrew, for you that you want to start or sit here, whether it be guys like Tannehill, guys like Fields, Tua, that's kind of that grouping after Lance and Cousins we're talking about, and Taysom Hill if you want to throw him in the mix too.
Yeah, I don't want to play Tannehill. Even we saw him get A.J. Brown back last week, and still he wasn't able to finish as a top 15 quarterback. Like, the offense is just too anemic overall in Tennessee. He's been outside the top 15 in 6 of his last 7 games. So for me, especially against Miami, fewest fantasy points allowed per game of quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. No quarterback has scored more than 18 fantasy points against them dating back to week 8. The Dolphins defense is surging right now in the second half after facing a just brutal start to the season where they were facing like elite quarterback after elite quarterback. Unfortunately, Tannehill does not fall into that category of an elite quarterback, so I'm going to have to try to set him as if I can.
Yates, play a game with me, all right? The game is called Lamar, Huntley, or the next guy I give you, okay? So it's Lamar, Huntley, one of those 2 Ravens quarterbacks, depending on what we get or how that all happens. Okay? So it's Ravens quarterback or Kirk Cousins. Who would you rather play?
I'll play Kirk Cousins.
Okay, Ravens quarterbacks or Trey Lance. I think I know the answer to that. I'm not going to ask you.
Trey Lance.
Ravens quarterbacks or Taysom Hill.
That's close. I have currently Lamar Jackson at 14, Taysom Hill at 15. So back-to-back, coin flip there. I will probably go with Lamar just based on his potential. Even with Tyler Huntley too, like there's so many concerns. I'll go with Taysom Hill. Actually, I'm going to make that change in my rankings. It broke my brain. Thank you very much.
Does not compute.
Ravens quarterbacks or Tua Tagovailoa.
I might go with Tua.
Yeah,
I might go with Tua there too.
Look, these are the most questions I'm getting on Twitter, which is why I wanted to put it out there on the podcast for everybody, because there's a lot of people who are on that fringe here trying to figure out what do I do here, because I have Lamar, I have Huntley, and then I've got in single quarterback leagues these other options, these guys floating on around the waiver wire, and their names like Tannehill and their names like Tua, and it's tricky. It's definitely a tricky situation right now. Andrew, any of the ones that Yates had there you would have switched around, or anybody really pop for you over the Ravens quarterback in that grouping before he moved to Superflex QB?
No, I think that with Lamar, it's basically you're starting him if you really don't have, like, the cutoff for me that I feel like comfortable with is like Derek Carr, Tannehill, like that tier of quarterback. Mm-hmm. So Tua, Taysom, even Justin Fields if he plays, Cousins, like I'm starting all those guys over Lamar. Like, the Rams run a lot of cover 3. Lamar Jackson is one of the lower graded quarterbacks per PFF's metrics in terms of passer rating against cover 3 defenses this year. He hasn't been getting done as a passer. We don't really know what his mobility is going to look like coming back. We got reports that says he's like still limping around. I know that Jalen Hurts, came back from his injury and was rushing fine. He had like a couple extra days because they played on a Tuesday. So there's just so many question marks with the Ravens, and if you can find like a good plug and play that you feel okay about, then I think you just do that. I don't think you need the headache, kind of like you alluded to earlier in the show, Joe.
When it comes to Superflex, I'm going to throw a bunch of names at you, and then I'm going to make a statement. And you guys tell me if the statement is true or not. Davis Mills, Ben Roethlisberger, Jared Goff, Zach Wilson, Taylor Heineke, Matt Ryan, Baker Mayfield. I want to start Jared Goff at Seattle over all these guys. Is that a hot take? Is that crazy? Andrew, what do you think?
No, I think that's accurate. I think that you are spot on with that take. It would be basically between Jared Goff and Davis Mills for me of the two guys. I mean, Davis Mills has been a top 16 quarterback the last 3 weeks. So, and he gets Brandon Cooks back. So that's kind of why he's actually looked like pretty decent over the last couple weeks too. So Davis Mills and Jared Goff would be my top two guys. Goff coming off the COVID list. We've just seen guys like tank, in their first week back from COVID. I don't know if we've seen at the quarterback position really, but yeah, and it is Jared Goff. So I'm always kind of like, but Davis Mills isn't exactly, the cream of the crop.
I mean, Seattle's another team. They've shown you who they are. You could throw the ball on them. Yates, what do you think about that statement?
I'll go with Goff there. I mean, you look at his previous 4 games, he has 9 passing touchdowns to 2 interceptions. The yardage really isn't there, but he's finding the end zone. So I think he's not going to be someone that I'm like, yes, I want to trust Jared Goff in week 17, but I do think that out of the other options, right, like I'm not going anywhere near Big Ben. I'm not going anywhere near Taylor Heineke. Zach Wilson against Tampa Bay, not doing it. So, yeah, I think in comparison to those other names, I will go with Jared Goff there.
All right, let's move to the tight ends right now. And for me, it's Noah Fant still. We've talked about the lackluster performance of that offense of Denver, so I'm not going to belabor the point. I just don't feel great about the touchdown equity. And then when I get down to the bottom of tight end, I'd rather play Hunter Henry. I'd rather play Cole Kmet. I'd rather play some of these guys where I feel like there's at least some upside. I feel like with Noah Fant, there's just no upside there. I might get a 20-point game out of Hunter Henry if he catches 2 touchdowns against the Jags. I might get a decent 12 points with Cole Kmet or, some of those other fringy tight ends. But with Noah Fant, I just look around and say, where's the upside there? And it's just non-existent, and the floor is really nothing to write home about. Yates, when we're looking at tight ends, who are you fading this week in that top group?
It's Noah Fant for me too, and I think with a lot of people are going to look at the matchup up against Los Angeles and they say, well, they're allowing the most fantasy points to opposing tight ends this year, but you look at the schedule for Los Angeles and it's like, okay, well, who have they played? Because that's important to keep in mind when you're looking at who, like, defenses at opposing tight ends and stuff. So you have Washington with Logan Thomas, Dallas with Dalton Schultz, Kansas City with Travis Kelce, Las Vegas with Darren Waller, Cleveland with Austin Hooper, David Njoku, Harrison Bryant, Baltimore with Mark Andrews, New England with Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Philadelphia, Dallas got, like, the list goes on. They've played a ton of really good tight ends. So that's why you have the numbers a little bit more inflated. I think that this is a situation with Noah Fant. There's no upside. So I don't have him as a top 12 tight end this week. All
right, Andrew Erickson, how about you at tight end? Who are you fading in the tight end 1 group this week?
I'm just a little bit lower on consensus on Dalton Schultz. I know that he's kind of seen his production.
Sacrilege.
He's seen his production boost up over the last couple weeks. I'm just concerned about how he'll keep up seeing as many targets as he is just because of the offense and how crowded it is. You have other playmakers there like Gallup, like CeeDee Lamb, like Amari Cooper. He's 4th in target share over the last 4 weeks, so all those other receivers are seeing more targets per game than Dalton Schultz is. And Arizona's been a pretty good defense against tight ends this season now. Again, to Kyle's point, they haven't played exactly the creme de la creme of elite tight ends. So I actually did end up moving Dalton Schultz up a little bit from my rankings where I initially had him. Like I was like way down. I was like, oh, Cardinals, he can't do anything. I was like, wait, maybe pump the brakes a little bit. But just again, I don't know if we see a top 5 performance from Schultz.
I think that's very sad that you picked Dalton Schultz. I mean, the performances have been there the last few weeks. I understand there's a lot of other weapons, but he's getting it done. A tight end. Let's play a game. Let's go to who should I start? Jared Cook or Noah Fant? Go ahead, Andrew Erickson. Who would you rather play?
Yeah, I'm not playing. Noah Fant's barely even the tight end one on his own team, let alone on my fantasy team. Alberto has 4 less targets than he does over the last 4 weeks. So I'm going to go with Jared Cook. He's a better quarterback, more touchdown equity and less competition for targets. There's less tight ends in that room that are stealing away potential opportunities for Jared Cook. He's always a prime candidate to find the end zone. So I will lean towards Cook.
How about you, Yates? Same thing?
I have Noah Fant 1 spot higher than Jared Cook in my rankings currently, so it's an absolute coin flip. If you want to go for the touchdown upside, then you go with Jared Cook. If you want the the 3 for 30 line, then you go with Noah Fant. But I mean, Jared Cook could end up with like 2 for 15, right, and doesn't find the end zone. So Noah Fant will at least be involved, but that's the way that I'm viewing it. If you want the touchdown, then you go with Jared Cook.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment as well. Let's continue on here with the show to our favorite starts and sits of the week. I'll kick things off here. My favorite start of the week, Devin Singletary. Yes, I'm saying it. I highlighted him earlier. I'm going to talk about it on the DFS show tomorrow. The guy's getting it done. They're finally finding some balance. Yay, hooray. Buffalo clearly has been listening to the program, and I appreciate all of those folks there in that front office and all the folks in the coaching staff who do. And finally, a little bit of balance has turned out to be a good thing for the Buffalo Bills. So Devin Singletary is in my lineup this week as a flex or in a deeper league as an RB2. If you have no choice, I think you might be able to get away with it. And the other guy for me, again, 2 weeks in a row, I'm sitting Terry McLaurin. And again, if I can avoid playing Melvin Gordon, I would like to sit him as well. So those are my guys for this week. Yates, how about you? Who are your number one start and your number one sit guys for Championship Week 17?
Well, listen, as we look at his first or second start of the season, I'm not going to let Trey Lance slide by without saying, like, you got to start him. He's my start of the week. This has been my guy all year. So I'm really, really excited to start Trey Lance this week up against Houston, 100%. A top 10 quarterback in my rankings this week. And then for me as a sit is Dario Ogunbowale. I know that a lot of people are going to look at what he did last week and say, maybe I can get away with it. I'm just going to pump the brakes here a little bit and say there's very little path for upside. I would prefer to sit him if I can.
After all of this year, Yates, do you have any championship rosters that have Trey Lance on it that you actually get to play him this week?
I picked him up in a third place bracket, third place game, but nice. Yeah.
I got all my championship rosters. None of them have Trey Lance on it, so I don't get to play him. I play a lot of Superflex, so that wasn't going to happen. So unfortunately, that's not the case. Andrew Erickson, you're a must start, must sit for Week 17. Who are those guys?
Oh well, I have 3 rosters with Trey Lance on them in Superflex.
Look at you, Andrew Erickson. Well.
So, like, basically, when we go to the show next week, it's going to be very happy Andrew, depending all upon what Trey Lance ends up doing. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting Sunday at 4:00. I'll be very tuned in to see what Trey Lance does. So my starts, again, like Trey Lance is definitely someone that I really like a lot. I'm gonna go with Van Jefferson for the Rams. I think he bounces back here. He's still running ton of routes for the Rams. I think Matthew Stafford and this whole offense bounces back after a poor performance last week against the Ravens. And then my sit will be Saquon Barkley. I would try to do whatever I can to try to get away from there is volume here. But besides that, if you find someone with a better matchup, a receiver with more upside that you just like more, I think that there are potential pivots. I mean, you're looking at like 10 points. Is like kind of like Barkley. Like that's it. Like that's what you're looking at. If you think you can do better than that, I would start someone else over him.
My best piece of advice for everybody out there is don't overmanage. You got to this point because you have a good team. Put the best players, best matchups you can out there. Don't try to overthink. Guy off the waiver wire who was good last week might not be the answer to the guys you've been playing all season long that got you to the championship. Andrew, any parting thoughts here for our audience as we send them off to win a bunch of trophies?
Yeah, I would just try to stay up to the news as much as possible because this, again, we're all learning together with all this new COVID stuff that's coming out about they're just changing the rules like during Week 17. No one asked about the fantasy playoffs if this was okay, but they did it anyway. So
how dare the CDC not check with us, the fantasy football community, whether or not they could change the rules on us? How dare they?
So guys that we think may be out may not be out. So just make sure you're staying up to date on things like Isaiah McKenzie, for example. I thought he was a good play, and now he's really not because Gabriel Davis and Kobe Beasley are back. So you want to keep that in mind, especially because guys get ruled out, as soon as 90 minutes before the game starts because of COVID. Happened last week with David Johnson. So stay up to date in things, but then, and when in doubt, go with your gut.
I would love to see McKenzie play well again. I don't know. He's just fun. He's got an energy. I think that's an important thing for that Buffalo team to have too as well. How about you, Yates? Any words of wisdom for our audience here in this final start-sit show of the year?
Man, crazy. Final start-sit show. That is crazy. Thank you. I'll just say this.
Of the year.
Yes. I will just say, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us this entire year and being as dedicated and loyal as you have been. Go win some championships.
Yeah, and listen, we're not going anywhere. Podcast isn't going anywhere. But, there's no more starting and sitting. We're going to be looking forward to Ready. If you missed it on Tuesday where he started talking about some of the dynasty risers and fallers, a great show with Travis May was just on there. I'm still going to be doing all the DFS shows every single week here, going all the way through up until the Super Bowl. So don't fear. We're not going anywhere. Football Talk's not going anywhere. We're going to still be coming to you live every single week here at Fantasy Pros. So make sure you check that out and stay with us all year long because football never sleeps, and neither does Kyle Yates. I can attest to that. That is
So
absolutely
tired.
true. I sleep like a baby. It is beautiful. Also, don't forget about that giveaway we got going on to fantasypros.com/contest. Alvin Kamara autographed jersey on New Year's Eve is going to somebody. It could be you if you subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that little bell for notifications, thanks to our friends at pristineauction.com. So go check that out. And also, do something nice. Once again, that GoFundMe page for Mike Taglier's family is still up and active if you'd like to make a donation here at the end of the year or even after you win your leagues. Mike gave you so much of his time, energy, and passion for the game, and it's lovely if you want to return something back to his family this time of year. That would certainly be very appreciated by all of us. So please, please, please go take a look at that. Again, that's the GoFundMe page for Mike Taglier, and I'm sure Yates, myself, will all retweet that because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be looking for that on Tuesday because I know you're all going to win a bunch of championships. I believe in all of you. You've made it this far. You've worked so hard. Now it's time to get the job done. So go out there and win some ships, and then you can celebrate with all of us next week. We'll get the champagne ready for you on Tuesday, baby. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Andrew Erickson and Kyle Yates, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.